Today's text comes from the very first book of the Bible, Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 9. In your pew Bible, it is on page 8. Genesis 12, 1 through 9. Now the Lord said to Abram, "Go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land that I will show you. I will make of you a great nation, and I will bless you and make your name great, so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and the one who curses you I will curse. And in all the families of the earth they will be blessed through you." So Abram went as the Lord had told him, and Lot went with him. Abram was 75 years old when he departed Haran. Abram took his wife Sarai and his brother's son Lot, and all the possessions that they had gathered and the persons whom they had acquired in Haran, and they set forth to the land of Canaan. When they came to the land of Canaan, Abram passed through the land to the place of Shechem and the oak of Moreh. At that time the Canaanites were in the land. Then the Lord appeared to Abram and said, "To your offspring I will give this land." So he built there an altar to the Lord who had appeared to him. From there he moved on to the hill country on the east of Bethel and pitched his tent with Bethel on the west and Ai on the right, on the east. And there he built an altar to the Lord and invoked the name of the Lord. And Abram journeyed by stages to Negeb. The word of the Lord. The text is the very first story of Abram. This is before his name became Abraham. He was Abram and Sarah was Sarai. This is the very first time we hear about Abram, though in the text before we did see that his dad's name was Torah. But here is the very first instance of the story of Abraham. Here we see and hear the calling of the Lord on Abram. A calling that was different. A calling that in many ways was scary. A calling that he was willing to take and to do. He was called to leave his land. He was called to leave that which he knew. He was called to leave the comfort of his dad's house, the comfort of his land and country, the comfort of that which he knew, to move into a land of unknown. And not just unknown because it was another country. He didn't know where he was going. God said, "Leave this country, your country, and go to the land that I tell you to. Go to the land to which I'm calling you to." He didn't say, "Go from here to there." He said, "I will show you. Go to this land that I provide for you." And it's scary enough to move from one place to another within the same county or within the same state, or even from moving from state to state here. Imagine moving from country to country. Imagine then of just going. Of you hearing God say, "Go east," and you just go. Or God calling you and says, "Go west." Would you go? No exact place, no exact coordinates. You can't put it into the GPS. It just says, God calls you to and says, "Just go west." Would you go? That is faith. Abram had enough faith that he was willing to hear God. Not only to hear God, but to listen to what God said. And then not only to listen to what God said, but then he dared to go out and to do as God had called him to. That is faith. Hebrews 11 tells us that faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen. That's Hebrews 11:1. Abraham shows us what faith is. He heard God's call. He had hope in it. And he went without knowing or seeing what was in front of him. He went because God called him to. He dared enough to go and to do. And God said, I will bless you. I will give you many children. I will make you a great nation. So this is where the interesting part really kicks in. Because not only was God calling him and Abram had faith and went, Abram and Sarah could not have children. They were already late in life. For those who think they're too old, Abraham and Sarah were about 70 and 75 when they left his father's house. And they followed God's call. So here was a 75-year-old man. And he was willing to go. And now God is saying, I will make you a great nation. Even though they have no children. They have no descendants. They have no expectation of what can be a family growing. That's the reason why he took his brother's son, his nephew Lot, was like a son to him. His brother had passed away, and Lot became like a son to Abraham. And so his quote-unquote son was Lot, his nephew. And so he went with him on this journey. So the interesting part is, here they were, a family of wealth, doing well in the land. His father's house had many servants, had land, had animals, had plenty of things. And he himself, Abram and his family, had gathered them as well. So if he stays there, he stays in comfort. If Abraham is willing to just stay, to ignore God, he is in a good place. But he would still not have descendants. He would still be living a barren life. His seed would not become a great nation. He would live in comfort, though. He would be okay. He would have much money, wealth, all that he can ask for, he would have, but he still would not be the blessed Abraham that we speak of even today. Today, whose three major religions of the world, Christianity, Islam, and Judaism, are all called back to Abraham. If Abraham stays at home, if he ignores the call, if he's unwilling and afraid to take that step, we wouldn't have the religions of the world that we have, the three major religions. But he was willing to take those steps. So this makes me think, how often have I made a choice in my life that was more about comfort for me rather than what I should choose to do? What choices have I made where I decided to maybe stay somewhere because I was comfortable enough? I knew this place enough. And there's always that saying about it's better the devil that you know than the devil that you don't, right? Even though the devil is the devil and you should try to avoid him or push him out from where he is. But quite often in our lives, the choices we make are more about the comfort that you feel. They're more about the things that I don't want to push the envelope too much or rock the boat too much, or well, I don't know how things will work out, so I'll just stay here. I won't take the risk. I won't try to go too far because if I go too far, I might fail. What things have you chosen in your life that have been fearful rather than beneficial? What call have you heard or where has your heart gone that wanted you to do this, to go there, to take this risk, but yet something didn't let you? And you stayed there, and you stayed back, and you didn't get to do what you might have been able to do. Abraham responded to this call. Responded even knowing that he could not have kids, that they did not have children, that they could not do it. After all these years, they were unable to. So at this point, it was just a matter of just norm. Yet he was willing to listen to God, who said, "Leave this place, and I will make you a great nation, and to your offspring I will give this land." He was willing to trust God enough to take those steps. And what happens when he trusted? What happens when we trust God enough? God blessed him. God provided the child and the children that God promised. God brought blessings beyond blessings that he couldn't even comprehend. He made him a great nation that has influenced the world even to this day. And his children once again later returned to that land. God's promise was real and true. God's promise was fulfilled. God did what God said God would do. Abraham may not have seen it, but God still fulfilled. For God's promise is just that, a promise that will always come through. So what is our problem? What are we struggling with? It's easy to read the story and say, yeah, back then, that's a Bible story. Of course he has faith. Of course God is going to do. It's the Bible. But the Bible is speaking to us even till this day. The Bible speaks to our lives, to your life, every day. God is speaking life into you. And God is calling you to do what you have been called to do. For some, it may be something amazing and great and stand up in front of thousands of people. To others, it may be to be the foundation of an organization that helps provide work and do things that are socially justice and ethical and all of this. There are different calls for different people. Not everyone is called to the same thing, but each of us have a call. What is your call? What is God calling you to do? What is the call that God is placing on your life? I think for all of us, we all have at least an inkling of what that call may be. Now, do we respond to it? We don't always do. Do we pursue it? That's where that fear comes in. And the worst part is that sometimes that fear is not even our own fear. Sometimes our fear may be minimal, but there are voices of those around us that start to provide some more fear. There are voices of those whose negativity starts to rub off on you. So when you're ready, you're like, you know what? I think I am going to take the chance and go to this job. I'm going to take this new job and I'm going to work hard at it and I'm going to accomplish what I need to accomplish. Then sometimes there are those whose voice comes in and says, are you sure? You know, you're doing really well here. You've been here for 10 years. Maybe you shouldn't. And like we were talking last week about the temptations of Jesus, those seeds always seem to make sense. They seem to be okay at the moment. But because they are seeds of negativity, they grow into something much worse. So here you are, you were willing to take a chance, but someone's negativity, someone's own fear rubs off on you, because then you start to question. You know what? I have been here for so long. I have my 401k. The boss isn't that bad most of the time. I only get yelled at a couple of times a week now. I did get a raise 3 years ago. So maybe they're right. And it goes. And there, just like Abram, we had a call and an opportunity, but unlike Abraham, we didn't take the risk. We didn't take that step because we were afraid. And because of that fear, we continue in the same cycle. And then we're going to have the audacity to complain about it 6 months later, right? I can't believe this person is doing this. They're doing the same thing they've always done, and they're acting the same way they've always done. I can't believe that this team member isn't doing any work. Well, they've never done work. You've been the one to take it over and do it, and then they benefit from it. That's always been the same, but now your life is different because you were unwilling or fearful, or you heard negativity that made you fearful to take that step. So maybe one of the first things we need to do is to take care of those voices. Because it's one thing if someone had your best interest in mind and they present to you the different opportunities and facts that may be before you. So what are the good things about this new job possible? What are some of the good things about the old job? What are some of the bad things that may come up? What are some of the bad things that are at your job now? Like to help you to analyze. That's a good thing. But when somebody's negativity and someone's negative voice and someone's essence is just negative, and the possibility is that they don't even realize it. There are sometimes people who have just been through so much that they can't see their own negativity because everything is just like that. So I'm not even putting blame on the other person, but I'm asking you and encouraging you, and I'm praying with you and for you that you can help decipher the voices of those who are encouraging you, those who are planting good seeds and wanting you to succeed, and also that God would grant you the ability to hear the voices of those who are bringing negativity and planting seeds of negativity, and that those seeds would be taken out and those voices be silenced in your life so that you can do as Abram did. When God called, Abraham responded. When God said, go here, Abraham went there. When God said, I will make you a great nation, Abraham believed God. When God said, I will give your people this land, Abram believed that God would. So I challenge you today to listen to the call that God is placing on your life. I challenge you to hear God's voice for you. The challenge is at hand. The call is on your life. A decision is coming that you have to make. Whether you take the steps or not is on you. But I dare you and I challenge you to believe God, to hear where God is calling you to go in the direction that God has called you, and to believe that if God promised it, God will fulfill it. I challenge you. I dare you. God will do what God has said God will do. Now it's up to us to believe it, to live it, and to take those steps out of our comfort zone and into the place that God is calling us to. Amen.